Okay, everyone, welcome. Another live. We're going to tackle a tough subject, actually. Can a marriage be saved after adultery? And of course, based on our title, I argue yes. Now, let me say this before we get into what you need to do to save the marriage, all right, after adultery. However, though it can be saved, let's be honest, it'll take a lot of work. There's a lot of trust to be rebuilt. There's a lot of pain and hurt that must be worked through and resolved. All right. It's going to take time. And I'm not talking 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. It could be a year or two. All right. But I promise you, I've worked with hundreds of couples who have survived the tragedy of adultery and found the triumph of love on the other side and found their marriages to be stronger, richer, and more meaningful. But they put in the hard work because they did love each other and they fought for that love. All right. So, can a marriage be saved? Yes, it can. Now, marriages don't actually end because of adultery, actually. Some do. But really, I believe marriages end because of how they handled the adultery. It's because of how they handled the adultery. You see, the question for you is, does your understanding of love, does your understanding of love, is it big enough to allow for loving another person, to allow yourself to love another person for failure, for deep hurt, and for betrayal? Does your love for that person allow you to love for those things? That's the question you have to ask yourself as we begin to move forward in this conversation around um, can a marriage be saved? I'm saying yes, but here are 10 things you must think about and do for that to potentially happen. Number one, and this is most important, all right? That's why I think I put it as number one. The adultery must end. It must stop. It cannot continue on. Whoever the offending spouse is, they can no longer have contact with that person. They can't text them. They can't email them. They can't see them. The relationship must stop. I mean, stop cold. If you're not willing to end the relationship, then you're like, it's like going into a bar when you're an alcoholic. You're probably going to drink, right? If you're an alcoholic, you don't belong in a bar. Just real simple, right? If you're a cocaine addict, you don't belong in a crack house. Got it? You don't belong in this place. The same thing. If this has been an adulterous relationship, you don't need to be around that person. All right? The relationship, the adultery must stop. If it does not stop, I think we all can figure it out. The relationship probably is not going to make it. All right? So the first thing is the adultery relationship must stop. The offending spouse must stop all contact with that person. Now, this is second. Honesty is essential. No more secrets. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. Complete honesty and openness. You see, adultery is about lying. Let's be honest. You're lying about where you are, lying about what you're doing, you're keeping secrets. No more secrets. No more secrets. Complete honesty. And this is the tough part. Even honesty to where what you're thinking or feeling is going to hurt your partner. It's a complete honesty, but you can be honest and open about what's going on in your mind, your heart, those kind of things. Both of you, by the way, you can still be honest and have goodwill and respect with each other. It's like speaking the truth in love. All right, you can speak your truth. You can do it in love, or you can speak your truth and do it in an unloving way. All right. So I think being honest is essential, but it's how you speak your honesty that also matters. All right. We always say this way: love has a tone to it, and the way you know someone's speaking their truth in love is their tone. All right. You can be honest and have a negative tone. You can be honest and have a positive tone. because love does have a tone to it. So honesty is essential. Why honesty? Because when you're honest, you build trust. When you're honest, I have confidence in you. When you're honest and open, I don't have to try and second guess what you're saying. I don't have to try and read in to what you're saying. Your yes means yes, your no means no. All right. What you mean is what you're saying is what you mean. You're honest about what's going on inside of you. You're honest about where you are. You're not hiding where you are. If they ask a question, if the victimized spouse asks the same question 14 times, be honest. Give the same answer. You see, a lot of victimized spouses, they'll ask a question 3 or 4 or 5 times, 10 times sometimes, and they'll ask it different ways. You might think, why are you doing that? Here's why: they're wanting to make sure they're getting the same answer consistently. They're wanting to make sure that you're being honest. Why? They're actually trying to build trust. That's why they're doing it. They're trying to build trust, and you can't build that trust if you're not honest. All right. So honesty is essential. Number three, it's going to take patience. It's going to take patience to rebuild trust. Trust does not come overnight. It does not come in a month. It may not come in 6 months. As a matter of fact, my experience, 30 years in this field, is that level of trust you're really looking for could take a year to 2 years. You might think, oh no, a year to 2 years? Well, yeah. So what? You have a lifetime together. What's a year or 2 years? To rebuild and restore and build trust along the way. One thing I've learned in my own journey, professionally and personally, people who are trustworthy, excuse me, people who are trustworthy are never bothered when their trustworthiness is questioned. They're not bothered by when you question a person's trustworthiness. Why? They're trustworthy. And because of that, they're going to be honest with you. It's when a person isn't trustworthy, they're going to be bothered when you question their trustworthiness. All right. And if you're trustworthy, they'll build back. When you live a life of being trustworthy, I mean, you're going to be honest, you're going to be accountable, you're going to speak your truth, you're going to show goodwill and respect to them. All right. When you do these things, you'll probably build trust back a lot sooner than you think. It's when there's deception, a sense of I don't care, you leave me alone, quit asking me the same question. All that basically sends to the victimized spouses, you don't care about the pain you caused them, you only care about the pain that it's causing you. So it's going to take patience to rebuild trust. All right. So be aware of that. And that's not a bad thing. If you love each other, then you build the trust back. Now, this is interesting, but necessary. The offending spouse must take full responsibility for the choice of adultery. Do you get what I said? The one who committed the adultery, the offending spouse, must take full responsibility for the choice to commit adultery. When you sit back and blame the other person for well, you did this, so I did that. I had a case today. Well, you did this, I wasn't happy, so I went and found somebody to make me happy. You just blamed your spouse. You just blamed your spouse for what you did. You could have gone and eaten a McDonald's hamburger. You could have gone and had a Chick-fil-A sandwich. You could have gone and driven your car to California. There are 500 other decisions you could have made other than adultery choice. Now you get to own that one on your own. You see, but when you put off your choice for adultery on the other person, you're not taking responsibility for your choices. You're basically saying I was an innocent victim to the choice of adultery because of what they did. Actually, you made the choice. And let's be honest, I would argue 100% of people who commit adultery know what they're doing. They know it's wrong. and they took the risk anyways. Why? Because they're looking for something they probably weren't getting in their marriage, or in their own mind or heart, or from their past, or who knows what it is. They're trying to get something fulfilled in a very unhealthy, and I would argue immature way. So the offender must take responsibility for the adultery choice. All right. Now, I do recognize that sometimes some relationships are in conflict mode, and have been in conflict mode for a while. Conflict mode for a while. And you haven't felt loved. You haven't felt connected. You haven't felt valued, if you will. All right. I get that. And there are probably problems in the relationship prior to the adultery decision. So we know in the marriage therapy field, it used to be taught, quite a few decades ago, that if a man cheated on his wife, it was the fault of the woman. Actually, I love the lecture by Dr. Frank Pittman, who is really a leader and a mover in the field of marriage therapy. I'm not even sure if he's still alive right now. But years ago, he did a lecture. I actually have the transcription of the lecture on my computer. The lecture was titled Father, Sons, and Zippers. And basically, here's what he was saying to the marriage therapy field. Quit blaming the women. The reason men cheat has nothing to do with the wife. It has to do with the fact that these men were raised by immature fathers who were never, these men were never raised to be adult men, mature men. And he said, basically, they're little boys acting out little boy issues. They're thinking of themselves. And you know what? I agree with them. It really is true. It really is true. That's not to say there weren't problems in the marriage before, but that choice, that's an immature choice. Now, also, let me say something as well. Sometimes the choice for adultery is connected to a sexual addiction. In that case, it's never about the wife. It's strictly about the addiction. Yes, there are men who look at porn, who masturbate, who do a lot of things, but there are some men who act out their sexual addiction through adultery. So you need to find a counselor who understands addictions as well, because there's a history of pornography and masturbation and those kind of things. You may be dealing with an addictive process that needs to be dealt with as well. Because if you don't deal with the addictive personality, you still have a problem in the marriage, right? So the offender must take full responsibility for the adultery choice, all right? Now, the next point here, number 5, is you'll need to work on the issues that preceded the adultery choice. Remember, I just said sometimes there are issues in the marriage that were already there before the adultery choice. You still got to deal with those things, right? You still have to deal with poor communication, where you aren't connecting, unresolved hurts and pains from things that have happened maybe over the years, whatever they are, all right? You've got to face those things. Why? The adultery choice is one thing, but even when you deal with that, you still had issues back here that were lingering. So we still need to face those things and resolve those things, so that when you move forward, whatever issues were in the relationship prior to the adultery choice, excuse me, whatever the issues were prior to the adultery choice, they need to be worked through and resolved. Why? Because you want a complete healing. You want a whole healing. You want to rebuild an us that is strong and vibrant and connected, loving and mature. All right? So whatever issues were there before are going to have to be dealt with. Example of a case I was working with today. And they've had problems in the relationship really going back to dating. He even said, I knew she was this way. I should have left when we were dating. I should have left when I was engaged, but I didn't. And that's okay. Those are his choices. Forgive me. Got a tickle in my throat. He recognizes, even if we solve this issue that I created, the adultery, we've had problems for a long time. And they have. Pornography issues. There's communication issues. There are issues with their family of origin that have been very negative influence on that relationship. And so even though they work through this, they still have to solve all those problems that were already in the relationship before he ever made the decision to commit adultery. So those are pieces they're going to have to work through, that you'll have to work through to resolve. Why? Because if you want a healthy, strong us in the future, you don't want lingering, unresolved issues moving forward as well. You've got to deal with the crisis of the adultery for sure, but then you have to turn your attention to what was going on in the relationship all along anyways. You see? Now, my caveat, typically, if it's a sexual addiction, it usually is going to be the addict. It's the addiction. Don't blame the adultery choice based from a sexual addiction on the spouse. It is the addictive personality. And the thing that is true about the addictive personality is the addict personality is going to do what it wants, when it wants, whenever it wants. And no one's going to tell us no, because the addict personality doesn't respect humanity. It doesn't respect others. The addict personality doesn't bond to people. The addict personality bonds to the addiction. The addiction is how the sex addict or the alcoholic or the drug addict or the gambling addict, the acting out is the way that the addictive personality gets its love needs met. So in that sense, you have to deal with the addiction. It means you got to have a recovery program in place, right? Why? Because the best place to treat any addiction is in a group setting, a 12-step program. All right. So you're going to have to deal with that if the adultery is based off of an addictive process. All right. So you're going to have to work on the issues in the relationship that preceded the adultery. All right. Now, hear me out on this one. I tell people, for the next point, by the way, I tell people, rather than go and try and fix this relationship, what if we decide that this is chapter 1 of your marriage, and chapter 1 is ending with intensive therapy to heal brokenness and hurt and pain? Then what you do is you choose to write chapter 2. Chapter 2 has not been written yet. So which means now you two can go write whatever you want from this day forward. You can write something new. I like that way of thinking. Trying to fix something and repair it is kind of moves things forward. I think at some point there's a lot of wisdom saying, all right, we're going to create a new relationship from this day forward. We're going to start writing chapter 2, and in chapter 2 we're going to do things really different. This is why I believe strongly, that's why I believe our work in Relate Well is essential to this process, because what we do in Relate Well is we give you the fundamental skills and tools and principles to how to create a healthy, bonded, connected relationship, how to communicate well, how to emotionally regulate well, so that you can handle conflict and protect us. The idea of us in our work is that it's the most important part of a marriage. Us wins, you both win. Us lose, you both lose. And when us is in the house, you know it because you feel it. You know when it's not in the house because you'll feel that too. When us is in the house, you feel the love and the connection and the warmth. When us is not in the house, you feel the anger and the tension and the coldness and the distance. And every decision you make gives you or gives us. Why not choose to create a new relationship where you both are deciding we're going to start giving to us because we would rather be in us than rather be two individuals, you see. And so choose to create a new relationship. Now, that relationship's not created yet. So you can go write whatever you want in chapter 2. Because chapter 2 hasn't been written yet. It's waiting for you to write it. Or you could just keep chapter 1 going, which I recommend against myself. And so create a new relationship. What do you want? What are you looking for? Now, in our work, if you came to see us, we would say you're going to create a new sense of us that has deeper meaning, have deeper understanding, that is basically going to be, from this day forward, we are going to live for us in all aspects of life. Why? Who gets married to be miserable? When us is in the house, you're both happy. You're both connected. It's peaceful when us is in the house. When us is not in the house, you feel the angst, the tension. I don't want to live that way. I actually grew up that way. I grew up where there wasn't an us in the house. I ain't living that way. And so create a new relationship. The next point is, let me make sure I get my note. Allow, and this is really for the offender, you must allow the victimized spouse time to heal. That's going to take time. Get some workbooks. Read about healing from adultery. There's a great book out there by Dr. Shirley Glass called Not Just Friends. That's the latest research on it. The Carters have a book out there. Dr. Carter, Carder, he has a book out there on healing from adultery. There's other ones that are out there. Do a marriage intensive. We do marriage intensive with couples who've experienced adultery and brokenness and deep, deep distress, and we get the process rolling for them. But we always say it's going to take time to heal. It's going to take time to heal. Allow the victimized spouse time to heal. That means you got to have patience. You got to have patience on your side. Now, what could expedite their healing, if I can say it that way? It's actually simple. When there is complete, honest remorse on the part of the offending spouse, and that remorse, and this is key, that remorse, that sorrow that you feel as the offending spouse, that you feel for the pain that you caused your partner, not you. When your pain, when your remorse is for the person that you hurt, that leads to true repentance. There is no true repentance where the remorse is not for the person that you hurt. See, most people, the remorse they feel is because I got caught. The sorrow they feel is because now I got problems. The sorrow they feel is now I got issues with you. Now, so I'm sorry that I have to now be trapped. That will lead to death. That will lead to the destruction of your marriage. It's when you can move to sorrow and feel the pain that your partner feels for what you did, and you care. And when that happens, you can save something. And by the way, it'll leave no regret for you. Why? Mainly because when you feel the pain of the person you hurt and it grieves you that you created that pain for that person you loved, you'll do whatever it takes to make it right for them. Why? Because I love you and I'll never want to hurt you again. And that creates a very powerful way of being. Now, with that, you're going to start spending some time together. All right? Going out on dates, talking together. All right? Doing things that aren't about, quote, recovery, that aren't about healing. Go on bike rides, go for walks together, go out to dinner together. All right? Go do some things that you enjoy doing together. Start dating, start reconnecting, start enjoying each other again. Rebuild the friendship. Rebuild that friendship in a way that's been more meaningful than before. So you got to start spending time together. And that needs to be an ongoing thing. Build it into your calendar, weekly or bi-weekly, all right? If you got little kids, get a babysitter. Get family or friends to come in and watch. But make time together a priority. I call it's us time. Make us time. It's a priority in healing from this, all right? Now, it is important that you get counseling and or mentoring. A lot of churches do marriage mentoring, and they take well-seasoned couples who have strong, healthy marriages, and they mentor other couples in distress. In Relate Well, we actually train churches how to use our process in the church as a mentoring program. So we actually train mentor couples in Relate Well, and they use that to work with couples who are struggling in their churches. All right, the church becomes a healing entity. All right, but counselors can help. I don't believe everybody needs a counselor, but sometimes you do. All right, and sometimes the distress is so great, you may need a marriage intensive, not traditional marriage therapy that is weekly. There is some good evidence that suggests traditional weekly marriage therapy can increase your divorce risk. And here's why. You go in for your hour visit, you stir up emotions, which are stirred up anyways, and you go home after that hour waiting for your next appointment the next week. What are you doing different? The answer usually is nothing. And if you're not doing things different, you're not going to get anywhere different. So one of the things I learned from my teachers and mentors a long time ago is teach people the skills and tools of what to do different. Teach them how to communicate, how to emotionally regulate. Teach them how to bond, how to connect. Teach them those things. And I started doing that in 2004 in intensives and had far greater success with couples. Why? By doing a 3-day intensive with highly distressed marriages, they have skills and tools that they can use when they go home that will help create the new us that they're looking for. So get some support around you, counseling, mentoring, all right? Get some friends. And by the way, you want friends who are supportive of your marriage, not friends who are supportive of you divorcing. We know through some research that if someone is not feeling good about their marriage and they hanging out with divorcing people increases your angst and dislike of your marriage and increases your risk for divorce just because of the people you're hanging out with. But if there's things you don't like about your marriage and you hang out with people who are positive about marriage, they become an encouragement and support for you. You learn things from them. You can turn your marriage around. Now, I know it takes two to make an us and one to kill it. I get that. But as far as it concerns me, I can live in such a way that builds an us, all right? My wife, Luella, may not want the us, but that would be a different conversation. I can only do what I can do, and I will live in such a way that says I want an us. And this last one, even though I'm going to say it, it takes time to get there, but it is essential. You've got to forgive. You've got to forgive them. Forgiveness is the path to getting there. Now, in our work, we have a whole chapter on what is forgiveness, what is it not, and how to get there and how to do it. But you need to get to a place where you choose to forgive and move forward. And you'll learn that in the end, the forgiveness is not really for your partner. It's really for you. It's for your healing, your growth, uh, really your healing. You can't heal fully until you forgive. Unforgiveness blocks the brain's ability to heal from pain. Forgiveness opens the doorway up for complete healing. So you've got to let you got to let the resentment and bitterness go, and you do that by forgiving. Now, it's easier to forgive when the other person has been completely remorseful and has asked for forgiveness. But let me say this: whether they're remorseful or not does not mean you can't forgive. Forgiveness is something that you hold within you. To the offending spouse, there are probably things that are going on in the marriage before you didn't like. You're going to have to forgive those things. So forgiveness is going to be on both sides. And I would also argue if there's things you need to forgive yourself for, be open to forgiving yourself. All right? These are some strategies that you can you can look to and use to save a marriage after adultery. So I ask the question, can a marriage be saved after adultery? Yes, it can. It's Dr. Rick. I hope this has been an encouragement to you. I hope it's been something for you to think about. And if you are going through this, if this is something you've listened to because you are going through this, let me say this to you now. Guess what? You can save it. It takes two to make it. It's going to take work. Find a counselor who's pro-marriage, who will fight with you to save your marriage. Give us a call, relatewell.us. You can find us that way. We'll help you. Do the work and turn a tragedy into a triumph of love. Have a great evening.